Hello and welcome to week 4, day 2, in which we're going to talk about constructing your outline for the presentation. And we'll start with understanding concepts. That has links and documents you can preview that shows you what students have done for past USF prompted presentations. And some of them might look familiar, or I might not have already posted these, I don't know. But either way, I'm also just reminding you that it's okay to look at what other people have done and build upon it. That's how something great is created. And it's also nice and like comforting to know, to be able to look back and say, okay, that's kind of how I can do that, while also taking into account what you're looking at is not perfect. Yours isn't going to be perfect. But if you can already look at something and see, oh, they forgot this or that, or they forgot in-text citations, or they didn't really speak to an audience that I can see, or that sort of thing, then it helps you create a little checklist in your mind of how your presentation could be the best that it can be based off the templates that you've been shown and the expectations laid out on the assignment page. So there's a couple different ones for you to look at, leading you to the presentation outline and the basics of an outline that you and your group are going to create for this day 2 assignment could look something like this. And noting that when you have one section, I expect a certain amount of slides per section. I don't know if I had this on the assignment guidelines to begin with, but it's good to know it for now, right? And even if you already built a bare bones presentation link and you have it set up, you'll know that you either have to expand on a certain claim, or if you're like, oh, there was too much on the claim and evidence slide anyway, then just dice it into 2 or even 3, because for a visual format, you don't want a whole lot clogging up each slide anyway. And to that point though, I don't want to see like 30 slides per se for this assignment. That would be kind of crazy. You've already worked on a lot of this in 4.1. Actually, four parts of this. I had you do 5 parts. We're going to get into it. I had you do the position statement, and maybe you and your, for the outline, because only one person has to submit that, you and your group are going to decide Valerie's position statement is the best. Let's use that. And for the claim and evidence, 3 of you wrote some that aligned with your position. So you're going to use those. 1 to 2 of you wrote the opposition and refutation. So you should have that. You don't have this part, the restatement of position and statement of future implications, your conclusion. You don't have the context. So that's something to practice. And I'm going to give you some examples of what I mean by context. And before you start working with your group necessarily, I would like for you to draft some context statements on your own. And it will help after you look at this presentation to see why using an outline and why drafting context statements are helpful. Noting that something like an outline, a template, helps you know what to expect. Helps you if you need to revise sources, taking note that anything creative has a set template, and then you use your imagination to work within that set form. And then context is interesting the reader. You don't want to give them too much background, but not too little either. You're kind of giving them the bigger picture. and why should they care about the thing. So you can think of context statements as an introduction, but a little more nuanced. And this cartoon depicts it pretty well. If you didn't have any context, it'd be like bursting into the room and telling people why you cared about the Sopranos characters. And then people would be like, why are you telling us this? Why should we care? But if you burst into the room and you had some context like the cartoon, then people might start to see your point and why you're bringing it up. And that's why you need context. You're briefly summarizing for the reader why they should pay attention, and you only need a few sentences. You don't need, to span too many slides with context. And it's a way to generate buzz or interest for the reader. And it'd be great if you could practice individually creating context statements, because you're going to have to do it for the position paper as well. And again, it will give you in your group a lot of different statements, ideas to work with to add to this part of the outline and later to the presentation. I'm going to minimize this. Ultimately, for the outline, I want to see at least 3 context statements. They don't have to be spread out against 3 slides, but you could. But I would like at least 3 statements in the outline, and you don't have to tell me who wrote which one. So that's basically it for understanding concepts, thinking about past examples. What are we going to do for the outline? And we have a lot of the parts already on our Google Doc. We already copy and pasted all our individual 4.1 assignments. So we have a lot of it there. And now we just need to organize it. If we go back out, we click 4.2. We need to organize it based on the assignment guidelines. And this is another assignment in which, since it's a group assignment and only one person is turning it in, I would like to see a sort of accounting of each group member's name with an X or a check mark next to it if they contributed, and I don't care what they did per se, just that they contributed something. But I'm hoping, because they should have already completed 4.1, that everyone can at least submit a claim and evidence or opposition and refutation and or a position statement part of the assignment. And then maybe someone can be assigned the task of making this look all pretty. Someone else can be assigned the task of, is it in MLA or APA format? And what I mean is, if it's MLA, at the top before the outline begins, all I want to see is this header, all this stuff here. And then I imagine I would see, and then I would see your outline below filled out all nicely, titled outline. Since it is an outline, using bullet points are fine. Using phrases are fine. Or you could just copy and paste what you had in 4.1 for each one of these parts, and it's all detailed and full sentences, and that's cool too. I don't care. Basically, the new parts that you're going to practice are creating context statements and deciding which 3 you're going to use for the outline and the presentation. And someone has to draft ideas for your conclusion, which is this. And if I do want full sentences for the outline, I've indicated it. Oh, I did say I want a full sentence for the claim. And then you can use bullet point kind of phrasing for evidence if that clarifies things. And then I want to see which references or works cited you're going to use. And that just means I want you to decide which sources you're going to use for the presentation, and it can be changed for later. That's okay. It's an idea of the references, and that's APA, or the works cited for MLA. Which detailed sources are you going to use for the presentation? And if you're using APA, I would, instead of seeing that informal header, I will see a cover page, and then I'm going to see your outline on its own page. And you would have a cover page of information that adheres to APA standards, if that's what you and your group decided on. I don't need an abstract for this assignment. I think I clarified that as well. I won't accept late submissions for this assignment that's due February 6th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And if there's anything else about this lesson, this part of week 4 that you have a question about, please reach out to me before the due dates. And you have a good rest of your